Hello and welcome to the Unpolished Stories. This podcast is all about speaking beyond the spotlight. And what we really want to do here is we want to get to the juicy stuff that's behind the scenes, the stuff that people don't know about when they look at us as professional speakers. So we're really going to dive in deep this evening with a wonderful new guest, and we're really going to see what sort of fun things we can extract from this interesting character. Selena, I'm always excited to do this podcast with you. How are you feeling about our guest today?
I'm excited. I think that's been the neat part of this project that we've taken on this endeavor. And every single time we discover unexpected stories, we get to hear a little bit behind the scenes. And I think we go back to the phrase you've been using this entire set of conversations around we are human first, speakers second. And I think we need to hear from each other, not only the really good stuff, but those lessons learned and those moments when it was really hard. And I'm excited about today's guest because Julian has just got so much experience to be able to share with us. And we want to hear those stories. So we're going to dive right in. It is my pleasure to welcome Julian to this episode. He has really seen the world through many lenses, right? Through a telescopic sight as an Army sniper, through a TV lens as a globe-trotting cameraman for ABC TV, National Geographic, and the BBC. Through smoke and mirrors as a professional magician. I love that. And he has learned from Sir Edmund Hillary, Elon Musk, death row inmates, and space shuttle pilots. He's traveled far, but his longest journeys have been from behind the camera to in front of it. From stutterer to professional speaker, from shy to shine. It is our pleasure to welcome Julian Mather. Julian, thank you for joining us today.
I'm
What
super happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
you've spent most of your life, as you were sharing with us, kind of hiding behind the spotlight until you decided to become a professional speaker. And now you bring that message of change to the world. What was there a defining moment as you did that? Some sort of pivotal story that helped you move from behind to your first spotlight that you could share
Uh,
with us?
yeah, sure. And like the way that you described it there, it seems like it all happened bang, bang, bang. But this is a really slow motion process over decades. But the real pivotal point for me, just to give you a little bit of context there, was that I was a documentary cameraman and I had what I called the second best job in the world. They would literally put a plane ticket in one hand, money in the other, kick me out the door and say, go tell people stories. It was a great gig, but it was the people in front of the lens who really influenced my thinking. And even though I was out there telling their stories, the only story I never told was a story in my head, and that was that I was embarrassed because they had all this confidence to be in front of the lens and affecting change in the world, and I had none of that confidence. And I was mystified to like, how did they do it? What did they know that I didn't know? And I felt excluded because I learned that those people in front of the lens in the light, so to speak, are afforded more opportunity than people who stay in the shadows. And I felt small. I just felt I could be playing so much bigger. So this is what was going on inside my head. And I'm talking this is going on for decades. And then towards the end of those couple of decades, I was in the United Kingdom and we were filming a documentary on restorative justice. That's where you put the victims of crime face to face with the perpetrators of crime and make those perpetrators of crime take responsibility for their actions. We were in a school in a low socio-economic area of the UK called Banbury. It was called Drayton Comprehensive School. It was a tough school. Now, to tell you how tough, do you know celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay? The
Mm.
Hell's Kitchen sort of guy, and he's got a really foul mouth on him when you listen to him. He went to school there, so if you can imagine a school full of Gordon Ramsays all running around, That's what this school was like. It was so tough. It had its own policeman stationed at the school. His name was P.C. Graham Waddington, Police Constable Graham Waddington. And he would just, help with one of the problems they had was substance abuse. Kids were sniffing aerosols. So I was at the back of this classroom. He was at the front of this motley group of 15-year-olds, and he was just talking to them about substance abuse. But it was just amazing. The whole tone of the room came down. He wasn't talking at them. He wasn't talking above them, below them. He was just talking with them. And we were all spellbound by this guy. And then the bell rang. And these kids, they all had their bags in the classroom with them. And all the bags and the chairs and the tables scattered as they headed towards the door. And from my position in the back of the room, I was the only person who saw 3 kids walk past the desk, reach into their bag without saying a word, and leave a can of aerosol on the desk. And I went, wow, because I had covered dozens and dozens of well-meaning government programs that had spent millions and millions of well-meaning dollars and had not achieved much. Yet there was one man who stood in front of these kids for 20 minutes and stopped 3 kids sniffing aerosol that day. And something went off in my head. And I said, one day I'm going to be doing this. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know how, but I just know I'm going to be doing this. And that was the point that it all started for me. Now, there's a lot that happened after that, but that was the actual point. And so I guess what it is, like these things, you don't know when they're going to happen, but in a sense, you just have to be a little in tune with yourself and listening for these little cues. And sometimes you don't know what they're actually telling you. Sometimes they're like little earworms that get in there and they percolate over time, and then eventually you realize what that's telling you. But that was certainly the point for me.
Julian, I love that. For many of us, I think we've had those aha moments in our life where we just know. But you know what? I love I love the fact that you talk about the decades and the time lapses, because so many people look at people perhaps like professional speakers or people in the spotlight, and they think that we become this overnight success, and there's no such thing as an overnight success. Now, I noticed recently on LinkedIn, you posted a summary of your business model, this model for change. And you spoke specifically there about how this had taken 2 years. And I think there was 5 words on that model. And I can so relate to that because I've wrestled with mine for about 2 years as well. Talk to us about this journey. Share this journey of how you positioned this thing over the last couple of years.
So I just want to go back one step, and you were saying that people look at professional speakers and go, oh, well, you just sort of fell into this. All you have to do is go along to any professional speaker organization or go to a VSAI meeting like we're doing here, and look at the people in the panel. We're not children. Right? This is a lifetime of experience to get there. And a lot of this takes, you've got to get and tread the boards. You've got to get the flight hours up just in your message that you're getting out there before you've even got the confidence to get in front of people and state a point of view about it. And that takes time. So, if you're 25 years old or that, and you're looking and go, I want to get into this, I'm going to respectfully suggest to you that there's a place for you in there, but your main speaking is going to happen in a decade or 2 decades time. It takes time to get there. And part of that, to segue into the second question there, your message, it's the price of entry is for you to have refined IP, intellectual property, and that takes time. And you said it took me 2 years. No, it took me 10 years. That message of own up, wise up, step up is that has taken me 10 years to get to that. I mean, and this is not an exaggeration to say it takes thousands of hours. of drawing models, of arguing with myself, of taking that out into the public domain and putting it out there, and then getting criticism back about it. And you go, the first thing is you go, oh, that hurts. But then you go, well, actually, you might have a good point. And that strengthens your IP. Because if you're going to stand on a stage and tell people to change how they think and they feel, you also have to be able to stand there and take questions from the audience. And if you have not put your material out in the public domain and had it robustly tested and had all those questions come in beforehand, you're going to find it very, very difficult.
I'm wondering, so I understand you were president of PSA, right? So tell us a little bit. You've seen a lot of speakers, a lot of stages, like you were just mentioned, right? I think about how we leverage, right, those associations, those relationships as part of our story. What did professional speaking associations do for you in terms of just even how you cultivated your stages of business and the IP, right? And the things that you developed. Even maybe somebody even watching this or listening to this later going, should I get involved? Should I not get involved? What will it do for me? Anything there you can share with us?
Okay. I mean, all I can tell you is my story, and I'll go back because yes, I was on the board of my local PSA. I became president, but the reason I did that is I go back when I decided that I wanted to start to speak professionally. I didn't have professional speaking experience. I had been a professional magician, which is a whole nother story. I'd done 2,000 shows. I had learnt stagecraft by doing this, and I had learned my shtick. I just knew my stuff, and I thought, I'm going to go and do professional speaking now. How hard can this be? And I found that it was way harder than I thought, because I had to talk about things that I didn't know. And again, it comes to, getting questions from people. So I joined Toastmasters, the, personal development public speaking organization. And I spent 6 years there, and I had a strategy when I went in to make this work for me. And this is my strategy. It's a three-pronged strategy. Listen really carefully. Put your hand up, put your hand up, put your hand up. And I did that for 6 years, and I volunteered for every executive role that I could. And I started off as what they call sergeant of arms. I literally unpacked the cupboard, put the microphone up, did all that, put the banners up and packed it away. I did that for 2 years. And then I took on a VP of education, and I took a VP of membership. And then I ended up as president for 2 years there. And you got to understand, I never thought that I could do this. I knew nothing about leadership. I mean, as a cameraman, I had been a lone rider doing my own thing as like a freelancer, like a lone rider riding the planes out there. I didn't understand what organizations did. But organizations like this need people on their leadership team. And here's the thing, I know so much more than I did 10 years ago before I'd ever been on a board. I understand how processes work. It gives you great connections to other people, because when you take on the role as a president, you speak every time. Every time there's an event, you open the event and you close the event. People get to see you. And if you want to be a speaker, you have to be seen. So there's massive value in doing taking an executive role. And I tell you what, it's a fair bit of work for the 12 months that you're going to do it, but you will get more out of it than you put into it.
I love this thread that's coming through of putting in the hard yards. And I almost think we might even have a podcast name here. It's not about just diving into the next thing and just having it magically happen. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and
So
I'm just...
Mm.
Can I just follow on? I know you want to keep to time here,
We're
but
Oh,
good.
good.
just back to that business model that we talked about, which I got down to these five easy, repeatable points that you can explain to somebody, is because confused people don't buy, and unless you are super clear in your head and you can. Communicate this in a very, very concise, clear way, you are just going to struggle getting your message out there in a time in history that we are going into very, very short messaging. And you're just taking about, saying that this takes time. It takes time. It is a price of entry that you have good IP. It is now a price of entry that you can perform, because bookers want engaging speakers. They don't want more experts. The world is full of experts. You can stay in, do training roles and coaching roles and use your expertise that way. But to stand on a stage in front of people now, which, we've got shorter attention spans, you've got to be able to put the performance value in there as well. And it takes time.
Nice. It does.
And that kind of reminds me of a sort of a business plan process. The executive summary is the first thing you read, but it's the last thing you write. You've got to write the big document before you can condense it into that executive summary. And it's a very similar process that you're describing here. So
Yeah,
I think
and
we
people and audiences do not want like bookers and audiences don't want another expert, because they already know what they have to do. They already know that their organization has got all these experts in there, but they're not doing it. And our role, and particularly I'm speaking as a motivational speaker, is not to go in there and teach them something new. It's to give them a new idea and then inspire them and then motivate them to get up and actually start doing it, because that's the problem that businesses have.
Absolutely. Julian, I'm going to sort of change direction a little bit. I'm totally captivated by the fact that you won this Golden Guitar Award some years ago. But what I love about this story is the backstory, of course, the stuff behind the scenes. You said it was your worst video ever, and you made the decision to enter this competition on a what the heck mindset. And I'm kind of feeling that there's a lot of strategy to what you do, but there's also this, well, oh, let's just go for it kind of what the heck. Has that played out a lot in your career?
Yeah, so I mean, just unpack that a little bit. So something I learned as an army sniper, the best thing to do is the right thing. The next best thing to do is the wrong thing. The worst thing to do is nothing. And so it is about if it's not perfect, put it out there. Fail quickly. Fail quietly, repeat, and you just do this over and over again. But having said that, I don't go out there unprepared and without planning. It's no, and this is very important when you look at it, from the booker's mindset. I continually, hear people saying, "Oh no, I just go out there. I don't like to rehearse because it comes across that I'm just phoning it in." So there's a couple of things there. One, you don't know how to rehearse. Right? Like you don't know how to put your stuff together if you're saying that. And the other thing, if you just want to go out there and wing it, very, very few people have. You've got to have a huge credibility behind you and a huge following of people who will just listen to anything you say. And as an example, like someone like social media, a guru, Gary Vaynerchuk, he just goes on there but he's very good at this. So there are outliers, most people can't. But what bookers want is certainty, because their job and their reputation relies on it. So when you deliver a speech and they see you doing a talk at some event and they go, "Oh, that would be perfect for our people over there," they want you to bring that speech, not some variation on it. They know that's what I'm buying. That's what I want you to give. So you've got to be able to do that, literally close to word for word. And that doesn't mean that you phone it in and it doesn't have energy and doesn't feel authentic. Of course it does. But when you know your material, so word that it's in your bones that you know this, then it's like a tightrope walker. Because if you're a tightrope walker and you're doing it without a net, it's really dangerous, right? Like you out there, you make one slip, you fall, it's all over. But if you have a net, and that is what a well-rehearsed speech is, it means you can go out there on the stage, you can know the content, but then if something happens, you can play with it with the audience and you can go off track. And if it's not working, you come straight back to your rehearsed script. And it's like this safety net, and it's what bookers want. They want certainty.
One of the things we've been intrigued by in the conversations that we just love having, exactly like this, is debunking some myths. And so, what do you see as some of the common myths of the speaking industry? And what are some things you've done to work through those things that you thought would be true or you didn't find to be true, or that other people may believe that just it's not?
Well, specifically is that you have to have really interesting content, or an amazing story. That you have to be a one-legged Mount Everest climber, or you have to have swum in the Olympics. You have to have had that, and that is simply not true. And I'll tell you a story of Tim Chaston. When I was in Toastmasters and I was in one of those presidential roles, part of that was doing mentoring. So a new member would come on and you'd be assigned to mentor them and help them through their journey. Tim Chaston was an engineering student, about 19 years old, who was very, very scared, very stiff, and very much wanted to do things by the rules. He wanted to stand behind a lectern and deliver. And we went, okay, Tim, that's your thing. You can do that. And so I mentored him on doing this talk. And it was about his work. He was working part-time as a university student at a supermarket in the fruit and vegetable section. And that's what his talk was about. It was about some of the odd people that had come in and stuff. So I helped him construct this talk, and it was going to be okay. And he delivered this talk, and I'm there making notes as he's delivering in front of the audience. And then he goes off script and he goes, you know what? Would you like to know the best time to buy your fruit and veggies in a supermarket? And I looked around at the audience and they put their pens down and they literally leaned in. And I went, what? Because I've got stories of climbing mountains and jumping out of helicopters and plane crashes and that. And I have never had people stop what they're doing and lean in. And here's a guy talking about fruit and vegetable in a supermarket. So if you have a story and you are telling it to the right audience, it is absolutely powerful. And I see this so typically my audiences will be more male. And you can tell, this is me. I get up there and I'm a teller, and this you're asking me questions and I'm off telling you something. That's me. Like, I'm not going to change that. Whereas women generally are way more empathetic and much better listeners. So if you've got stories that like around the female experience, where does a lot of that happen? It happens in the office, with people or at home. Those stories, and I have gone to events and listened to, women tell just a story about their children or something, and the audience are just in floods of tears and engagement. Good speaker, great event. So you don't need this big content. You need to understand, get the right audience and tell them the right message at the right time. And you are going to have a winner talk.
I think that gives hope to so many people, because I know so many aspiring professional speakers who almost feel like, I come back to how you started this interview. They almost feel embarrassed to get up on the stage because they don't feel like they measure up. So I think that's really encouraging. And what keeps coming through every time we do these interviews is these stories. Be authentic, tell your story, speak your truth. So I'm really pleased to hear that it's coming through again, Julian, and I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Yes.
Julian, what is one question that you wish that I'd asked, but I haven't yet? What would that question be, and how would you answer it?
Oh, I I mean, I think a lot of people, when they toying with the idea of professional speaking, they think that maybe I can continue what I'm doing in professional speaking on the side. But if you look at any professional speaker out there who's really nailing it, you just see them coming up event after event. Generally, you'll find that they have been speaking for 10 to 20 years and they had a really slow start and they have stayed at this, that they have worked at this for a business. And if you're coming into it and thinking, I'm going to do a little bit of professional speaking on the side, that's what you're going to do. You're going to do a little bit of professional speaking on the side. And that there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But if you beat yourself up because you're going, you know what, I've been sort of, working on this for a couple of years, and I can't get traction, you've got to put it in perspective. I mean, I think coming up with IP is a price of admission. Becoming a performer is price of admission now. And overcoming rejection is price of admission now, because you have to keep putting yourself out there. You have to have a CRM and a database. You have to ring people who don't know you. And you have to, I mean, I would say I get probably for 10 outreach approaches, I get one booking. And I hate being rejected. I'm a people pleaser. It's a skill that I have had to learn. And if you think that you're going to come into this and it's going to be different for you, well, of course, there's always outliers, but I would, 99% say you're going to be disappointed with that because you're competing with people out there. You're competing with people like me. And I have no special skills in this. I really don't. Everything I have learned, and I've got determination, and that's my secret sauce. Because I'm not particularly great at anything, but you've got me, and if you're going to stay up till 11, I'll stay up till 1. I will. That's what I have done to get where I am. And just to be absolutely clear, I'm not a super busy speaker. I'm not, because I don't want to do that at the moment. I'm 63 years old now. I spent 2.5 decades on planes traveling around the world. Here's a reality about professional speaking. It means you sit in airports and you sit in hotel rooms by yourself. It's what people don't like to talk about, but it's the absolute truth. Now, I did that for decades. I don't want to do that again. So I'm a little more selective. I still, push the business, but, I'm not some super speaker out there, but I have made professional speaking work for me, for my needs.
Absolutely powerful. Selena, what would you like to add?
Yeah. It's getting me on that spotlight, right? You just said it, right? There's a thrill that happens when you stand in front of a group and it's your audience and you're able to offer something and they're better when they walk away. It's the stuff behind it. I remember at one point I was traveling with a colleague and at this point, it's been 24 hours of airport schlepping through something, right? And she goes, isn't this travel life grand? And I'm like, I'm not quitting now because we're in the middle of nowhere. It's hard work. And I really have been thinking about it new ways around stamina and performance these days, right? The performance has been there, but it really becomes a stamina piece of being able to deliver our best in that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so.
And case in point, for this episode, we have coordinated 3 different time schedules. We've got US, we've got Australia, and we've got in the middle of the ocean in Mauritius.
Yes.
Stamina, right?
Right. Somebody's always not sleeping with these conversations. And, I think, but that's the commitment, right? That's the commitment we've all made to elevate the profession, to really bring something back to a profession that continues to give us so much. And that was really the hope through this too, is that, for our early career listeners and watchers, that they're picking up on tidbits they could have learned. We can help them learn a little sooner that maybe we learned a little later. For middle career or later in whichever career they're in, whether it's multiple careers along the way, but later stages of that, how do you continue to be your best? And that leads us to, Julian, we've loved asking this question of every guest, and that is, if you could give one piece of advice to your earlier speaker self, what would it be?
Understand value. Something, in most of my life, I was a wage earner, traded an hour of my time for X amount of dollars. And that's all I knew. I didn't understand how the economy worked. I just didn't know any finance. I was not interested. In the last 5 or so years, I've been training myself up to learn about how this works. And I just got this big insight, and it was around value. Because one of the problems when you're selling yourself is you've got a certain fee range, and people are going to ask you, all right, what's it going to cost? And then saying that figure to someone and looking them in the eye, if you can't do that with absolute conviction, for me, that is one of the hardest parts. So I have now understood what my value is. So I speak between somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000. You work out what my price point is, okay? When I go out there and I quote my fee, I know my value because so I speak about change, and one of the things I speak about is not quitting too early. Stop trying to look for outside solutions to your inside problems. Don't leave your job because you're unhappy. Work on other stuff before you leave. So I can stop someone leaving a business in an audience. If I can do that in Australia, like for a $70,000 salary, it costs somewhere between 30, the average replacement wage to get a new hire in is between $30,000 and $100,000 these days. So if I can stop one person quitting their job in an organization that's got, maybe have, 400 people in the audience there, my fee of somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000 is all of a sudden, it's chump change to them. And so I know my value. And before I really understood that, it's sort of saying that figure, it's stuck in my throat like a little piece of vomit because I didn't believe it. And now I can just look at people and go, this is the fee. And then I shut up and I say nothing.
Such a great parting shot, Julian. I think we are going to close on that note. This has been an absolute pleasure. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And as always, I could sit here for another full hour, but we are not going to do that at this point in time. Julian, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Always appreciate the opportunity.
Amazing. Well, for our listeners, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Keep an eye out for our next episode. As always, we are going to bring you the juicy, interesting stuff from beyond the spotlight.